I'm Grace Torie, and you're listening to That Girl the Podcast. Grab a beverage of choice and settle in, because the new episode is starting now. Hey guys, what's up? It's your girl, Grace Torie, and I'm back with a whole new podcast episode. Today's podcast episode is super special because I have an exciting announcement, and it's also the 1-year anniversary of the podcast. What the heck? The 1-year anniversary was actually yesterday. I thought it was next week, so that's why I didn't really say anything about it, but then I checked my email and Spotify said that I posted my first episode a year ago, so I got the math wrong and it was actually yesterday, and that's crazy. So basically today's episode we are going to be first talking about my little announcement in my life updates, and then we're going to be talking about everything I've learned about not only owning a podcast, running a podcast, but also ways that I've grown in my 20s in the past year. So I think it's going to be a really good episode, especially if you are looking to either start a podcast or be more entrepreneurial in general, or you just want some life advice for your 20s that aren't specific to one certain category of your life. This is the episode for you, I would say. So buckle up. It's going to be a really good episode, and I'm really excited. So, like I mentioned, let's jump into our life updates. Today is Father's Day. We spent the morning in Louisville, and now we're here, and then we're going to go to Cincinnati in a little bit. So it's kind of been a really busy day, getting a lot done, and obviously I had to also get the podcast up. Duh. No sleep for me, no rest days. I took a lot of rest days recently with everything going on, so we're here and we are getting it done. But I guess I should probably tell you my life announcement. I'll tell you the first one and then like the bigger one. They're both pretty big, but the first one is, if you remember, literally a year ago I told you guys that I was manifesting my dream car, and I didn't want to tell you what it was because I don't usually tell people what I'm manifesting when I'm manifesting it. But guys, I told you I was able to order it in December, and it came in yesterday. So, without further ado, I got my dream car, and it is a green 2023 Bronco. Yes, clap. She's here. I had to pull a lot of strings, and I still have to pull a lot of strings, working on pulling strings, but she's in my driveway. We drove her to Louisville today. We're driving her to Cincinnati. She is in my possession, pretty much. Have to sign the papers still, but I have her. So she was too stunned to speak, because when you order one and it comes in, they don't give you a heads up. Like, they give you a build date, but that's pretty much it. So obviously my boyfriend works at the dealership, so I was just like sitting at home waiting for him to get off work, and he FaceTimed me and he's like, "You're not gonna believe what I'm standing next to," and it was my Bronco. So I'm still like getting used to it. She was like literally too stunned to speak, speechless. I don't even have words. I'm just so excited and I want to cry. Like, it doesn't even feel real. So I haven't even like fully done all the things with it, ordered the stuff on my Etsy board that I've had forever with it. Like, I haven't done anything because I'm just so stunned and I need to like let it set in. I think after I like sign the papers, it'll be more real, but I'm just, wow. Manifesting is a long game, guys. It's not a short game, it's a long game. I started manifesting for this a year ago, but she's here now. She's here. So, my next announcement. You saw it if you follow me on Instagram and watched my story, either on my personal or my podcast, but your girl started a new company. Yes. What is it? What am I doing? Why am I stretching myself even more thin? Well, you guys, I was making Taylor Swift Eras Tour bracelets, and I realized that I really enjoy it, and I kind of got to thinking, how can I incorporate something like this into a business model, because I'm just personally very entrepreneurial. So I was like, how can I do something out of this, because I want to do something I enjoy, but I also know my long-term career goal is to do something with animals, whether that is doing the podcast full-time and donating a certain amount to animal shelters as well as volunteering, or whether that's owning a business that does something creative with animals, I definitely want to do something with it long term. So immediately my thoughts went to, how can I make this about that? So I made dog and owner, or pet period, it doesn't have to be a dog, any pet and owner friendship bracelets. And you guys are probably like, what the heck? Well, if you are watching, you can see them. They look like this. I have on one for my horse, which is Moon, and then I have one for Everly, which is my dog right now. But obviously dogs and horses can't wear bracelets. So what it is it's a charm that you can attach to their halter, their collar, all those things. So if you want to check that out, I will have the link linked down below. You can see pictures of it. You can order. If you want to support me, I would really, really appreciate it. Even if you don't buy anything, if you want to give it a follow to keep up, it would mean the world to me. But it's at Casper.collective on Instagram. The reason it's called that is kind of a little sentimental story. My dog, or no, not my dog, my bunny that I got in college, I was having like a mental breakdown, and whenever I get really bad anxiety attacks, I go to pet stores because animals make me feel better. Specifically Feeder Supply usually, because they have really good pets. They work through the shelters, so most of the time the dogs and cats at least are not through breeders. Everything else is a different story. Definitely adopt, don't shop, but I didn't know this. It was my first time buying an animal like this. Anyway, I went into the store and there was a rabbit, and he was super, super, super friendly. He was a baby, and I went out on a whim out of nowhere one day and just bought him. And he was definitely my heart bunny. Obviously, I have two bunnies now who are in the room with me, actually, Braxton and Bourbon. But Casper was just so important to me because it was when I was going through college, and he and my dog, because I just had Evie at the time, got along so well that they would just hang out together. When I went on road trips, I would just take Evie and Casper with me everywhere. And he just had such a very important place in my life and in my heart. And he passed away very unexpectedly when he was 2 years old. And I went into like an extremely deep depression. It was really, really hard for me. And I know that may sound dramatic, but I would have died for these animals, and I still would die for my animals. I just have a huge heart for them, which sounds really ridiculous, I know, but it's just how I've always been. My mom has always been really like understanding of it. A lot of people kind of like are like refer to me as like Snow White, like I'll just take anything in, and they just mean a whole lot to me. But because of that, apparently my reel is doing very well on Instagram. Sorry, I just got a bunch of notifications for it, and that never happens. Cool. Well, thanks, guys. But anyway, my life very much so revolves around my animals, and ever since Casper passed away, I wanted to honor him in some way, but I didn't know how, and I kind of knew like something would come along, and when it does, I'll just know. So being able to do this and then call it something after him was really important to me, and additionally, 10% of every purchase goes towards an animal charity of some sort. They rotate out every month, but at the end of the day, they all go towards educating owners and helping animals find their forever homes. So Casper Collective is what it's called. You can get charms for your animals. You can get bracelets. I also do bulk orders if you want me to make some for your sorority, your bachelorette party, anything like that. I can customize completely, color, name, whatever you want to do. Definitely check it out because it is so exciting. It goes towards a good cause, and it's genuinely something I feel like I'm going to be doing for a very, very long time, in addition to the Pitity podcast. So good times, right? Moving on. We talked about the Bronco. We talked about Casper Collective. Now it's time to talk about what I've learned. Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. I feel like I'm a totally different person than I was a year ago, but I'm also the same. So let's talk about where I was when I started the podcast. When I started the podcast, I had been out of school for a month. I had started a job in March, graduated in May, and was still doing that job in June. And I knew that that job was not what I was meant to be doing. I was miserable, but I was also terrified to switch anything up because I'd always been taught to do the safe thing and the safe thing was a corporate job, but it was really confusing for me because I wasn't happy. And why would people who love me and have always supported me want me to do something that made me unhappy? And I had a hard time believing or understanding that, because a lot of times the people in your life that love you are going to want you to do the safe thing because it's what is going to be most likely to keep you safe, happy, healthy, successful. But that doesn't mean it's going to make you happy. And if you're here, I'm assuming that you have a lot of really big goals, and sometimes you struggle with this feeling of not being happy with the safe option, but also not wanting to let anyone down, or not understanding why people are advocating against you taking any risks. So, because of this, and I didn't really have a lot of people in my life that were advocating for me to do anything risky, and I felt like I was stuck in this job and I was just going to be unhappy forever, and nothing was going to make me happy for the rest of my life. Like, that was it. I'm just going to be stuck in the corporate cycle. I decided to start a podcast because I felt like I didn't really have anyone who related to me, nor did I feel like I had a community of women who thought like I did, wanted the same things I do, and we were all working towards a goal regardless of what the goal is. Obviously, I have friends. I'm not saying I don't have friends, but at this time in my life, a lot of my friends graduated, so they were moving, getting their lives together. They were just as busy as I was, so it wasn't that we weren't friends, it's just that we weren't talking as much. So I felt like a burden kind of going to them and being like, I'm unhappy, blah, and they're like, oh, that sucks, I'm in the middle of moving, blah, like, go see a therapist. Not that they would ever say that to me. I have the most supportive friends ever, but I hate reaching out for help. I hate the thought of ever being a burden to anybody, so this was really hard for me. And Josh was obviously supportive as well, but I feel like being a woman going into a corporate job who is also Hispanic, it's just hard for someone who isn't a woman going into a corporate job to understand. And he doesn't have like a typical job, like your typical desk 9-to-5 job, like he's a car salesman. So he's very supportive, but it's not that he doesn't understand it as much as like a woman in her 20s would. He doesn't have to go through the same things we have to go through just to be heard. Not that he doesn't have problems, obviously, but they're different sets of problems. So in order to get that community, I knew that I was going to have to build it, because not only did I want a community, but I didn't want anyone to feel like I felt. I wanted everyone to always feel like they had someone who supported them. If they needed someone to talk to, they could DM me, which is still an option. If you ever need support and you want to DM me, go to That Girl the Pod and DM me, because I check those more than my personal. But I'm so happy to talk through things with you. Don't ever feel like you're alone. So, going on. Eventually, I do want to own a business. I've talked about that, whether that's the podcast, whether that's something else, I don't know. I also am really passionate about just doing my own thing. Like, I just want to do my own thing. And I love my job. I'm fine where I'm at, but I don't see myself being there for 20 years and working in a corporate lifestyle where I just go and do that, whatever. But at the time, I didn't know what my future was going to be. I was looking for a new job. I was trying to figure out if podcasting was going to be my full-time job, which obviously right now it's not. It is a full-time job, but I also do my Etsy full-time, and I go and work a corporate job full-time. So while I was figuring all of this out, I actually quit my job, and then I joined another job, but it didn't work out. It ended up being a scam, and they lied to me about literally everything. So for about 2 months, I didn't have a job. And the podcast, that was the beginning of the podcast. That was when I was posting my first like 10 episodes. So it was really a hard time for me. I genuinely felt like lost, so lost. I felt like I let everyone down because I got this job that I thought was going to be so good, and it wasn't. And anyway, long story short, that's where I was when this podcast started. Obviously now I'm in a much different place. Josh and I have lived in this house for over a year. I've had my job for 8 months. I've just been in a totally different place. I'm starting to kind of figure out where I'm at. My friends are obviously more settled in their position, so we're getting into the routine of how to have friendships after college when you're not living together or seeing each other every day, and things are different. So that being said, let's talk about what's different and how I have learned to do things differently, what I've learned differently, all of those things. So one huge thing I've learned, which I touched on, is just because your family or support system doesn't think that something is a good idea doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Obviously, weigh out what they're saying, but if they don't want you to do it simply because they don't think it's safe, but you know in your bones, like your intuition is screaming at you that this is a good idea, then it's okay not to take their advice. It is okay to do your own thing and to not listen to your support system. It doesn't mean they're wrong. It doesn't mean they're right. It just means that they don't have the same mindset as you do. They don't have the same experiences as you do. They may not have the same drive as you do. And even if you don't listen to them, that doesn't mean that they don't have your best intentions in mind. They can still have your best intentions and just not understand, and that's nothing, that's not anybody's fault. That's just the way it works sometimes. And I feel like in this specific time in the world, we are in an era where our generation is vastly different than our parents. And it may be like that for every single generation. I don't know. But my parents and my grandparents were taught to do things very differently, from how to climb up the corporate ladder to how to raise kids to what to eat every day. I mean, literally everything has changed. So what they think may be best for me may not be best for me anymore. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So that was a really hard lesson for me to learn, because up until this point, when you're in school and you have a set routine and the future is a little bit more certain, the things that you need advice on aren't quite as groundbreaking. Like, they're not as life-altering. You have the potential to severely, forgive me, but fuck up your life. Like, when you aren't in school with a set future and your questions are more of like, how am I going to eat this week versus what am I going to do with my life for the next 40 years? Like, the decisions become a little bit more weighted when you hit that point. So you really need to be a little bit more selfish and take their advice. Don't necessarily throw it out, but in the end, if you know what they're saying is going to make you miserable, it's better to take the risk and then reevaluate later if you don't like the risk you took and you end up not liking it, than to never take it. And that kind of leads me to my next point, is that nothing's permanent and you need to be trying on as many hats as possible throughout your 20s. Try everything. If you hate it, you hate it, but you won't know until you try it. There is no permanent thing in the world. Nothing. And life is too short for you to be so caught up on something that you can so easily change. If you hate your job, look for a new one. It's that simple. Your life is so short, you shouldn't be miserable every day. If you don't like the relationship you're in and you've genuinely tried to make it work but it's not, leave it. Like, nothing is permanent. And I know there's such, like, I'm not saying to break promises or anything like that, but if you're genuinely miserable and you've tried to make it work and you've communicated and nothing's working out and you feel in your soul that it's not what you are meant to do, there is nothing wrong with quitting, and you would be so much happier doing that and maybe being sad temporarily because you quit than to do it for another 20 years. I had another point, but I can't remember what it is. Oh, this one specifically relates to the podcast, but one thing you guys know I have always struggled with is patience. I'm so bad with patience. And the podcast is not a quick thing to do. It doesn't grow overnight. I mean, I'm here a year and I'm still working a full-time job on top of doing this. And that's not to say that every podcast is on a different timeline, because it definitely is. Like, every podcast has its own timeline. Some go really big really quick, some don't. It's honestly luck of the draw and the algorithm and all that, but it is a commitment. It's not a quick thing. So having patience and self-discipline is really, really important, and having something I have to stick to, where I have to put up about an average of like 30-minute episodes twice a week, that's a lot for someone who really struggles with patience and self-discipline. And I love you guys, but there's some episodes that don't get a ton of plays. Like, the people that do watch it, I'm so grateful for you. If you are a loyal listener, you are the literally top tier, my favorite person on the planet. You are so supportive. I would cry, like, if I met you, because that's how much I owe to you, just because sometimes you really just want people to listen and support you. And when I've felt like no one supported me, you have. So genuinely, like, just know that you're changing my life just as much as I hope I'm changing yours. But with that being said, it's a long game. It's not like I'm getting millions of views over here, and sometimes it can be a little bit discouraging, but it's something that you have to work at. It's something that the challenge is worth it, and enjoy the journey, because as time goes on, it slowly grows, and eventually we're going to be somewhere where it's freaking huge and I can do it full time, and I'm 100% confident in that. But like I said, it's been a year and we're not there yet. So patience is obviously a huge, huge factor here. And thank you for helping me learn that and not to give up, because you guys know I have ADHD and I tend to hyperfixate on things and then give up on them. But I promised myself I would not give up on this podcast, and I didn't. And I'm still not. So, like, that means the absolute world to me. I am so, like, not just proud of myself, but proud of this podcast and the brand. And I know I could be on social media more, but I'm doing my best here. Getting episodes up is like a big thing. So that is another thing that I've learned. I think I've also learned a lot about prioritizing, whether it's getting, like, when to get an episode up and when to focus on rest and fun and health, because I am a workaholic. You saw my episode literally a couple episodes ago. It was very circled around I am a workaholic and I need to get back to doing fun things. And you're never going to be that perfect balance of work and play. You're going to constantly probably, like, ping pong back and forth between the two. And having this podcast has definitely really, really helped me with that, because I would work on it so much, and then I would have friends text me and be like, hey, let's go to the bars. And I would say, no, I'm working on the podcast. But sometimes the better option is to go to the bars, and that doesn't mean you're lazy. That doesn't mean you're not working hard. That just means that you're resting to allow yourself the capability to go even harder and not burn out, because it's really hard to not burn out when you are obsessed with working in the outcome. I feel like I could go on forever, but I also am, like, I'm going blank at the same time. I don't know. It's been a really long day, and I just want to say that I'm so, so grateful. Like, so grateful. You guys are my sun, my moon, my stars. I love you so much. You mean absolutely everything to me, and I am so excited to continue this journey with you. If you want to follow Casper Collective, it's casper.collective. Like I said, on Instagram, it'll be linked down below. And I would love the support, even if you can't get a bracelet right now. The bracelets alone are $10 each, super affordable, and I would really appreciate any support. It means the world. Don't forget to follow on whatever platform you're on. Also, don't forget to leave a rating and review. You could just take 2 seconds and tap the stars, but if you want to leave a written review, that would mean the absolute world to me. Don't forget to follow on Instagram and TikTok at thatgirlthepod, and I think that's it. I upload episodes every single Wednesday and Sunday, and our 100th episode is coming up soon. We're in the 90s right now. I need to check exactly where we're at, but it's coming up soon, so that'll be fun. If you're watching this on Sunday, I hope you have a great night. If you are watching this on any other day, I hope you have a great morning, afternoon, or night. I love you so, so much, and I will see you in my next podcast episode. Bye, guys.